Voting in the election for the 10th President of Ireland will draw to a close within the next hour. Turnout generally has been slow, but there was some pickup after tea. Records show some 3.6 million citizens are eligible to cast their ballot, with more than 5,000 polling stations in operation across the country. Counting will begin at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
After a long campaign, voting day finally arrived, and from 7 a.m, 5,500 polling stations opened across the country. The 9th President of Ireland and outgoing holder of the office, Michael D. Higgins, along with wife Sabina, voted to help choose his successor in St Mary's Hospital in the Phoenix Park. There are 3 names on the ballot paper, but only 2 candidates actively seeking to be elected 10th President, and they too were amongst the early voters. Fine Gael's candidate Heather Humphreys, ably assisted by her granddaughter Charlotte, voted just after 8:30 a.m. in Killeven National School in New Bliss, County Monaghan. Later on, independent candidate Catherine Connolly was in her home place in the Claddagh and arrived by bicycle accompanied by her son Stephen to cast her ballot in the Claddagh National School. Taoiseach and Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin, with wife Mary, voted in their local polling station in St Anthony's School in Ballinlough in Cork City, while Taoiseach and Fine Gael leader Simon Harris, along with his young son, voted in Delgany National School in County Wicklow. The Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald cast her vote at midday in her local polling station in the Deaf Village in Cabra in Dublin. The Social Democrats leader Holly Cairns voted in Skibbereen, County Cork, while Labour leader Ivana Bacik voted in Dublin Bay South. One voter who has seen it all many times before is 104-year-old Bridie Dunphy, who cast her vote in Clontarf earlier.
It was too exciting coming up to it. I love the election time.
Polling stations in all 43 constituencies remain open until 10 p.m, after which boxes of votes will be transported to count centres for secure storage overnight. Counting begins tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Joe McGrady, RTE News.
Let's get the very latest now on voter turnout. Our correspondents are standing by. First to Samantha Libreri, who's in Dublin for us tonight. Samantha, you're covering the eastern part of the country and parts of the southeast.
That's right, Sharon. We'll start with the capital, Dublin City's 5 constituencies, where there's an average turnout of 33%. That's down 3% on the same period in 2018 in that presidential election, and it looks like it may not reach the 40% that was reached at the close of polls back in that election. The highest turnout continues to be Dublin Bay North at 44%, and the lowest is Dublin Bay South at 27%. In Dublin County, which has 7 constituencies in it, the average turnout there is 41.5%. That's approaching the 44% total turnout for the presidential election in 2018. The highest so far has been recorded in Fingal West at 46%, and the lowest remains here in Dublin Midwest at almost 35%. And that's where we are this evening, and that is the home constituency of Jim Gavin, the person who is on the ballot but is not in this contest. In Kildare now, and in Kildare North, we're recording the lowest turnout that we've seen in this area of the country at an average of almost 27%. Athy and Kilcullen, the averages there were about 29%. Kildare Town, it was 24%. Kildare South, a higher average turnout there at 29.5%. The highest in Naas at 40%, and in more rural Prosperous it was 23%. In the Wicklow Wexford constituency, the average turnout there is 41%. In Arklow it was up around the 47% mark, and in rural North Wexford it was around 37%. And in the Wicklow constituency, that's the highest we've seen in this region, a turnout of 45%. The highest there in Greystones, 53%. The lowest in Rathnew at 37%. In Wexford, the average there is almost 38%. One New Ross station recording 55%, and the lowest in Wexford Town at 31%. And finally in Carlow Kilkenny, the average there almost 35%. The highest in Carlow Town at 42%, and the lowest in Castlecomer at 31%.
Thank you, Samantha. Pascal Sheehy, what's the picture in Munster then?
Sharon, in the last presidential election in 2018, the turnout nationally was 43.9%. It was the lowest of any presidential election in this country. Here in Munster in 2018, turnout was slightly higher at 46%. At this stage, we should equal that by close of polls in just under an hour's time, but we are unlikely to go much beyond it. The latest readings we have from polling stations across Munster were taken about an hour ago in Cork City. In Cork South Central, the Taoiseach's constituency was at a turnout of 44.6% an hour ago. North Central was 36.8%. That gives a combined 41.6% for turnout for Cork City. The combined three Cork County constituencies were on a turnout of 38.5% at the same time, 8 o'clock. In Limerick City, on the Ennis Road and in Caherdavin in the city, turnout was 43%, but in more rural areas such as Bruff, Ballylanders and Temple Glanton, it hadn't reached 40% by 8 o'clock. In Moreau and Abbeyfeale it was 31 and 33%, and in Moy-Ross in the city it was 22%. In County Clare, an hour ago, turnout in Ennis was put at 36% and in Cratloe 39%. In Waterford City, Ballygunner had registered over 40% turnout an hour ago. Farranshoneen had registered 38.5%, while Scull-Lorcaune was on 34%. Much lower though in County Waterford, 34%, in Cappoquin, Tallow and Lismore. In Tipperary, Clonmel was at 38.5% at 7 o'clock, Nina at 32%. In Kerry, finally, the latest figures in just a few minutes ago were Tralee 38%, Killarney 48%, Listowel 33%, and in Naini Hoosh, Gá Fáingéad Isadad 42% in Dingle in the last few minutes. Sharon.
Pascal, thank you. Teresa, you've been looking broadly at the West and parts of the Midlands, I gather.
Yes, Sharon, and if we look at the West first, the turnout tonight has picked up significantly thanks to a tea-time surge of voters, bringing figures closer to 2018 in the 40s. By 8 o'clock tonight, the overall turnout in Galway West was 40%, almost double that from tea time. And places like Salthill and Knocknacarra have recorded the highest turnouts of 47% and 44%. Connemara 38% in Ferbica and 35% in Unspeadale. And the three Aran Islands were amongst the highest turnouts, with Inishmore at 43%, up 10% since tea time. Clifton also had a busy tea time rush, rising from 21% at 5 o'clock this evening to 36% tonight. And Galway East has also increased to an average of 38%, with highest numbers in Kinvara 47%, Loughrea up over 10% since tea time to 34%. And at 7:30 this evening, the Roscommon Galway turnout was averaging 36%, with Castlerea, Roscommon Town, Boyle and Ballinasloe and Galway all performing well since tea time. In Mayo, the average turnout is 30%, with towns like Claremorris and Ballyhonus all increasing turnout by over 10% since tea time. And in the Midlands, Tullamore, Birr and Edenderry and Offaly have turnouts of over 30%. In Laois, places like Mount Mellick and Portarlington also showing an increase in tea time turnouts with an average of 31%. And in Westmeath, Athlone, urban and rural areas also averaging above 30%. In Longford, polling stations across the county are reporting a 33% turnout, with places like Ballymahon, which had 19% turnout at tea time, now recording 32% tonight. So the overall picture across the West and the Midlands is a solid pickup in voting since tea time. Galway West is, of course, Catherine Connolly's constituency, and here at the Galway Lawn Tennis Club, she will be coming here tomorrow morning to see the first box of ballot papers being opened at the Count Centre.
Teresa, thank you. Marco Driscoll, you have the very latest for us from the northeast and the northwest, correct?
Yes, Sharon, and if you like, in the Heather Humphreys home ground here, or I should say in Monaghan, there has been a significant turnout today in the likes of Cleveland National School that you heard mentioned in Joe's report there, where Heather Humphreys casted her vote this morning, and also in her home place of Drum. Percentages there, turnouts of 72% and 65%. Elsewhere in the county of Monaghan, turnout averaging at around 50%. Now here in Cavan, turnout significantly lower. In Cavan town, it's averaging at around 35%, and it's a similar situation in the likes of Ballyjamesduff and Shercock. Now in County Louth today, turnout has been significantly high throughout the day. Darver has remained consistent in Mid-Louth with a turnout there tonight of 73%. Elsewhere, it's the more rural areas of the county that turnout has been higher, the likes of Bellurgan, Carlingford and Haggardstown, all over 50% tonight. A different picture, however, in County Meath, where turnout has been fairly slack all day, and in comparison to the 2018 presidential election, it could even be lower. Bettystown recording a turnout of 41%, but lower again in Ratoath of 38%, and in the urban centre of Navan as low as 26%. Now, in the northwest of the country, the counties there seem to have benefited from the so-called tea time rush. In Leitrim, Drumshanbo is up significantly since this evening to a turnout of 50%. Ballinamore is at 40%. That's in the southeast of the county. In Sligo, it's a similar picture. Sgurl Ursula in Sligo town is at 46% tonight, and our latest figures for Ballymote is at around 39%. Now in Donegal, turnout there hard to push, 40%. Donegal town is at around 38% tonight. Letterkenny at 35%. Buncrana at 32%. And many Gaeltacht areas of Donegal registering a turnout of around Trucka, Fongade, 30%. So around 50 minutes or so left in the polls here to vote tonight before all attention tomorrow, Sharon, turns to the polling, or the voting, the counting centres, I should say, across the country.
Mark, Teresa, Pascal, Samantha, thank you all for that.